We've got a little bit different message today. And the reason for this, I'll just be brief as I can so we can get moving with it, is a few weeks ago, Molly, Mike, Linda, and I went to a seminar on the weekend, and it was called How to Reach New People. And today, we are thankful for the opportunity that we had to go to that, but we're also thankful for the opportunity today as we want to share with you our insights and our thoughts and our plan as we go forward. And so with that, Molly?
Most of you received a letter within the last few weeks. Whenever you came to church, I tried to hand it out to people who hadn't been here before. And it was about this thing that we went to. The beginning of it starts with the church and the culture. In 1955, which is about the time I was born. Anyway, the church and the culture were pretty much the same thing. Everybody went to church. You knew where everybody was on Sunday. You were affiliated with a denomination. Everybody knew what denomination you were. The culture and the church were together. Helps if you're on the same right page. And mostly what we did was we stood at the door and we waited for people to come in and we greeted them. And people came to our doors. It's not 1955 anymore. Lots of things have changed. According to the American Church Organization, 19% of people in the United States will go to church this weekend. And in our state, only 12% of people will go. Another thing is that if children or people they're not children anymore, between the ages of 18 and 22 drop out of church, 80% of them won't go back. So, and then between 1990 and 2010, 125,000 churches closed. 80% of the churches in this country are experiencing decline, which of course we know we're one of them. And part of it is that we are still standing at the door waiting for people to come like it's 1955. When we use the strategies of denominational loyalty, and we still do this, and not that that's wrong, it's just that it doesn't always have the same effect as it had then. We have bake sales and dinners and bazaars. We have outreach projects, which we should have. That's what we're about, food pantries and things like that. But we tend to do traditional advertising, which doesn't always work anymore. We give away bottles and coffee mugs and things like that. We try tracking down people that were here before to bring them back. That rarely works. And sometimes we even redo the bulletin, the brochure, and the sign. But we tend to be stuck in waiting at the door for people to come to us. No church starts out to decline. You don't want to. There's a whole history of fruitfulness. We have baptisms and professions of faith. We try to educate people and form some spiritual foundations. People are even generous with their finances often, and we work for social justice in the church. And we have a lot of similarities to that in this church. Some of the signs of decline are we're living in the past. We get preoccupied with the building and the property. We have exhausted church members. We sort of focus inward maybe sometimes instead of outward. And we get into this survival mode. And have I gone into yours at all? Because I lost mine. No, that's it. Default strategies is what I was talking about with the mugs and all that. So now where are we at? Oh, now we're going to watch something.
Always remember 1961. The space race began, the Yankees won the World Series, and that's the year the construction boom came to our neighborhood. At one end of the street, they built a church. It was huge and real traditional looking, the great big tall steeple that you could see all over town. At the other end of the street, they built a grocery store. It was big too. I mean, it had just about everything a 10-year-old boy in 1961 could ever dream of. Well, a lot can happen in 12 years. And by the time 1973 came around, my neighborhood had changed a lot. The old grocery store was nothing like I remembered. As a kid, it had space-age food in the back and electric cash registers up front. At the other end of the street, that big traditional-looking church, well, it was pretty much the same. By 1984, pretty much everybody I knew as a kid had moved out of my neighborhood. Now, there were so many different people living there, and they spoke so many different languages. That old grocery store was certainly not what it used to be either. Now it sold all kinds of foreign food with names I couldn't even pronounce. And at the other end of the street, that church with the great big tall steeple, well, things still hadn't changed too much there. Well, my old neighborhood has never stopped changing. Today, young families are moving back in. Kids are playing up and down the street that I used to play on. And as for the grocery store, it's still changing with the neighborhood. Now it seems all you can find on the shelves is health food. I guess it's not been easy, all that change. But it seems like that old grocery store has always been willing to do it if it meant bringing in new business. As for that church at the other end of the street, well, just this last time I visited, I noticed, after all these years, it's finally changed too.
As we go through and we look at the reality of our world today, and look at the reality of the church and the decline, as Molly said, was 80% of the churches in America are in this state of decline. One of the things that we really seldom ever actually talk about is that there's actually a part of this that causes a grief within us. It causes grief. When we have somebody that passes away, we know the stages of grief that we go through with them. There's the denial and those types of things, which I'll talk about here in just a moment. And we don't really ever think of the things that are happening and changing in the church being a thing that is a loss, but really it is. We build relationships, and when people move away or go away, we experience loss. When people aren't here, we experience loss. And when we see something that we love, the group of people, the gathering of people, and it's dwindling down, we too feel loss. And we don't really talk about it too much in the church because we think like the church has got to be the place where we've got it all together. This is the one place where everything is right. We may have some challenges at home or work or other places, but the church is a place that we should have it all together. And when it doesn't come together, we don't know how to handle that. We don't have a name that we say we're experiencing a loss. We're having this challenge. And so the stages of grief, first is denial. Well, it's not, we just had a bad weekend. We just, somebody, people moved away, or, we find out we're not that bad. We start denying a reality that is there. That's the first stage of grief. And now, it's interesting that they put these in 5 stages in it, so it's like everybody thinks you're supposed to go through these. You go through this one, you get to the next one, you get to the next one. And we find out reality is that we kind of weave in and out of all 5 of these. The second one is anger. We get mad. We get mad that things aren't the way that they used to be. We get mad at people for leaving. We get mad at people for saying something that they make a comment, and we feel anger. This is a real emotion that we feel. This is a real part of the grieving process. And the next one's the blame game, the finger pointing. It's so-and-so's fault, or this person didn't come, and this person did come, and this our our district superintendent did this to us, or our bishop sent us this pastor. We have all these things, and we start pointing out and identifying things that are wrong, or things that we feel are the cause of the distress in the church dying as it is. And then we start into negotiation. Making a deal with God. God, if I'm going to spend all this extra time in prayer, and I'm going to do all these things, and if we just do this hard enough, God, will you bring those people back? Will you fill the sanctuary again? Will you send people here? As we start making negotiations, and then the last one is despair. When our negotiations don't work, and we still don't see things progressing the way that we think they should, it kind of hurts us, and we do feel despair, and we don't know what to do, and we don't know how to move forward. Now, all of us that are here and part of this church are in different stages. Maybe you're not, maybe you haven't noticed, or maybe you just, I don't know, haven't paid attention. But when we think about this church, and we talk about the times where we were thinking about removing that wall so that we could have a bigger sanctuary, or times where we had 2 services and they were full, and we're all in different stages of where we're at in the grief and the loss. But I want to say today that there is hope. Okay? There's some smiles. There's hope. And there's hope because of who we believe in, and there's hope because of the power and the presence of the Holy Spirit. And these things that we went to now, it's not the seminar isn't about another program to put in, or 7 happy hops to a fulfilled life, or 7 happy hops to heaven, or anything like that. The strategy is a process of us reintroducing ourselves, identifying who we are, and reintroducing ourselves to the community. And so one of the things it says here, says, so are you saying if we don't intervene, our church will continue to decline numerically? And the answer to that is yes. I think, Mike, are you next?
No, the castle.
Oh, yes.
Is there one word that could describe what the relationship of the church to the culture is today? The word that we came up with was isolation. Isolation. That the church today, it's not irrelevant anymore to the culture. It's isolated. And I came up with this image right here. This is how this is how your church appears to the culture. That's what we mean by isolated. Now, several years ago, I had some lay leader from a United Methodist church say, well, that's not a United Methodist church. And I said, all right. Now it's a United Methodist church.
How to reach new people is an approach toward community evangelism. It's a long, slow building process of developing relationships in the community and taking the church outside the walls.
We signed up having no idea what we were getting into, but we knew that the congregation being older and we needed some new people, so that's why we went.
When I first arrived at Warsaw United Methodist Church, the church leaders had already been to the training for how to reach new people, and I'd been here maybe a week or two when Teresa Adams, who is now the chairperson for the committee, approached me and said, this is what we want to do.
I think with Warsaw United Methodist and how to reach new people, we really took it as a commitment.
What a gift for a pastor to come into a church that wants to be involved in the community and wants to build relationships with people right where they are.
Some of the activities that our church has done for the How to Reach New People, we've done some various activities such as like an Easter egg hunt for kids during Easter time, and we did a booth during our fair.
So the church has a Christmas parade every year, so now we have a float in the parade. One of the things that's important to this community is Little League, so I held a blessing of the bats now 2 years in a row and offered the invocation for the kickoff of the Little League season, and our church is now sponsoring a Little League team this year.
We have done the color run with the YMCA.
Another approach we've used is Love Wednesday, and that was an idea that we borrowed from another congregation in the conference and wanted to find ways to highlight some of the persons who work hard in the community. We've been taking prayer walks as well. So we'll walk up and down Main Street, and I ask people to just notice that to which God draws your attention. And we're going to pray about it.
People are just seeing us out in the community and wanting to be a part of what's happening in Warsaw United Methodist.
Reaching new people has helped our church to have an outward focus.
Before we had started this program, there wasn't as many people like coming to the church I had noticed than there were when I was little, and it seemed like our church was slowly like dwindling down in size. But now that we've started this program, I've noticed that there have been more people like coming to church and talking to me about like my church or churches in general.
I've seen Warsaw, our church, grow. I've been a member of our church for a long time, and we're seeing people come through our doors that we haven't seen before.
We've seen so much improvement and growth, even in our church.
I think it's given our church new life. I think before we felt dead, and now we have excitement and just new life. It's been a great program for us, and we want to continue it.
And now we're getting visitors, and we're getting visitors inviting people, so the power of the invitation really came back around, and it's just a worthwhile program to really see it all come to fruition.
So, how do we get our congregation to be re-represented, I guess, or reintroduced to the community is through, like this last video, we're doing a float for the lighted parade, which is December 3rd. We're doing a cookie exchange on December 4th. Those invitations will be passed out next Sunday, which is actually the first Sunday in Advent, by the way. And there'll be, starting in January, there'll be the first Saturday of every month will be a T, which stands for Together Encouraging Another. And I'm trying to decide whether it's going to be here at the church or at the parsonage, or, maybe somebody each month will host it at their home, so that, and the thing is to just get more people, for the men, we could do, they could go out and do target practice or target shooting or whatever, and the thing is just to get people together that don't necessarily come to church with people that are here in the church, so it's a more comfortable setting. So we just, so we're more outward focused, and so we don't stay in the castle. Up in that room at the top is where the pastor's office is. So it's just, giving us an opportunity as a church to get back out into the community and so that they don't so they know where we are and what we do, and so that we're, just better represented in the community.
Okay. Well, if you haven't figured out yet, this program was called How to Reach New People, and I think we all agree that's what we want to do. And one of the things that was brought out to us was we need to relocate where we do our meetings. We usually conduct all our meetings either in the chapel or in the office or in George Hall, sometimes in here. And the idea is to, again, as Linda said, get out in the community. And we've started doing that. With our admin council meetings, we've held those at different places in town, and we want to continue to do that. And so one of the things is to, and we've been doing this also, is to look around and see where could we do this? What would be a good place for us to be out where people will see us and just maybe get a little curiosity built and go, well, what are you guys doing? Well, we're having a church meeting. And that might pique some interest, we hope. One of the things that was mentioned in the video was prayer walks. And they gave us some examples of that. And again, the idea is not to go out and for lack of a kinder phrase, browbeat people, but just, God works through prayer. And so if there's things that she said that touched your heart and God led you to, then they would pray about that there within the group and let that move. As also Linda mentioned, the community events that we can get involved in. And again, we're working toward those things. Toward the end of that session, again, as it leads into the next part here, it says, so again, you're saying that conducting our meetings inside the castle walls, as we've seen, will keep us in isolation and numerical decline. And again, the answer is yes. So the whole concept here is reconnecting with the community and make them aware of us. One of the things they talked about was that within a reasonably only a few weeks at the most, something new, a new sign, a new building. After a while, we as humans, as we go about our daily work, it becomes invisible. There was one instance they gave where the gentleman was working with a fellow who, again, out in the community, and he said, well, where's your church? And so it's the next block over. Oh, I didn't know there was a church there, because we get so caught up in our daily work that sometimes. So it's our job to get out there and let them know about us. So so this is kind of two parts. The first part is that I'm going to talk about now is what's our pastor's role in this process. So in that session, again, it says growing congregations expect their pastor to be out of the office and in the community in conducting that business, and that's where things have to start. So it says the vast majority of pastors, they got into this because they have a true calling and they want to make disciples for Christ. And so that's what's in their heart. In past generations, pastors of the church were seen as the face of the church. When people went around town, oh, that's the pastor from this church, or that's the pastor from that church. So again, got to be out there. It says, however, in the last 3 generations, congregations have expected their pastor to be an office manager. And again, one of their examples was that people said, well, yeah, I know our pastors, they're working hard because I see his car or her car there every day, and they're there all day long, working hard. But again, in that little picture we saw earlier, there's the pastor's office up in the little corner. But they're reaching no one. They might be organizing the office and doing paperwork, but we've got to reach out and touch people. Growing congregations, and as Molly mentioned earlier, there's 80% are decline, 20% are not. We want to be part of that 20%. It says growing congregations then expect their pastor to be out and doing this work out in the community on church time, and not his spare time, but that's part of his church work is to be out in the community. So the concept here is for us to have a plan to be able to reallocate. Their suggestion was at least 8 hours of his week to be out in the community, connecting with people, networking as we call it nowadays, right? So what we're going to do right now is George has a chart of his schedule so we can kind of see what he does in a typical week. And then we'll see how, and some of these things we're talking about, he's already actually started doing, and you'll see that in his schedule up there. All right? So, George?
I don't know if you can read all that. I can barely read it from here. Some of the things that a lot of people have asked, what do you do? What does a pastor do during the week? Part of it is when you go through seminary and you go through the training, they're talking about for every minute that you're going to preach, you need to spend at least an hour in study. And so, but that doesn't mean I'm going to try to preach 40-minute sermons so I can spend 40 hours working on it. But there's a lot of things that I am doing. Some of it is, paperwork and sending in the reports. How many people did we have here last Sunday? How many, sending in those reports to the church. Some of it is. I do spend a lot of time in preparation for the sermons that I preach. I also spend time in places like I'm a member of the Rotary Club, and so that's a place that I'm out networking. I've started, and my challenge is I haven't done this particular part consistently, and one of the things that we're going to do is to be able to make it more consistent. I've been out in the community in various places. I'll take my laptop and I'll go sit at Maya's or El Serape or one of those places and do some work there, be seen in the community, and hopefully interact with people. And so these are things, how do we reallocate my time to where my time is spent more in the community, and also for you to have a place where where I'm going to be. Say, for example, I'm going to be at Crossroads, whatever particular day it is, from certain hours, that you're welcome to stop by there and just chat about whatever's going on. Or if you have a friend or someone that you're meeting there, to be able to introduce and to be able to start connecting and making network connections between myself and them, and to be able to continue with showing and sharing in a sense, my heart, our ideas, our thoughts, and share the love of Christ with people. But that starts with building the relationships. And Molly's going to talk a little bit about networking strategies.
Yes, we need to be able to have a plan where this networking can be effective. I mean, you can do a lot of networking, but it might not be effective. And networking is sort of like a contact sport. There needs to be physicality there. You can't just call somebody on the phone. I mean, you all get those phone calls since you're like, oh gosh, you don't want to talk to somebody you don't know. And there needs to be a routine. It has to be the same place, the same time, because you need to allow the relationships to develop naturally, and it takes time to build those relationships, to build trust. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. So relocating the church office partially into the community is one of those networking things. Breaking the community down, they call them ponds. The eateries are a pond, and you need to look at those. Maybe sporting events, maybe things that happen with the chamber. Maybe the fitness center is a pond because you've got different people that go there different times of the day. You could even consider the fire departments, the police, the hospitals, those are ponds, Rotary, even maybe the funeral home, the pet shelter. There are all sorts of ponds in our community, and what we have to do is we have to investigate to figure out where the people are, when's the best time to be there, so that they can connect, we can connect with them and they can connect with us. And it needs to be consistent. We've talked about that, it has to be consistent. And this is what the pastor has to do, but I think it's going to carry over to all of us eventually. I mean, not eventually, now.
I had been visiting various places, looking for a place to kind of hang out, where there'd be a lot of people, where it would be easy for me to relate to folks and to the staffs of these folks. So this is one of the places that I decided to make part of my weekly routine. So there's a lot of community that goes on here at this restaurant. And so anyway, I decided that it would be a good way for church folks to get here and get connected as well as just having some hangout time with me on an informal basis. Right. Decided Thursday was the best day for me to do that. And so here we are at Elizabeth's Pizza.
Well, first of all, Bev knows the staff, the entirety of the staff on a first-name basis. And when Bev walks in the door, they say, "Bev's in the house." This is just a very relaxed way to get to know folks better and also to get to know Bev better. Peter, apparently Peter, after he met Bev, they had a conversation, and he
at the bar.
At the bar, and he was asking, it got around to the fact that Bev was a minister, and he was very interested in the fact that Bev was a minister, and they got to talking about some philosophical type questions that Peter had, and then as a result of that, Peter inquired when Bev would be back, when she might be back at Elizabeth, so maybe he could have a chance to talk with her again. So they said Thursdays at 11:45 is when you can find Bev here. So he came, and we had a group of about 6 people that day having lunch, and Peter showed up. And we pulled a chair up and welcomed Peter to come on in and join our group. And we had various ages and, just different, a very diverse group of folks that day. And I think Peter felt very comfortable and was able to, just talk about, what the church meant to us, and we were able to share some things about our church. And he is a former tennis pro and with some injuries, so I think he's, maybe searching a little bit at this point. And I think he found, that he could relate to all of us in the group, and it started with Bev.
So now here comes, that is, we transition to these thoughts and these ideas. Part of it is that I will be going out, and we will find a place where I can be, and there will be certain times, and we'll keep those times posted to where if you want to come and just hang out with me, or if you just have questions, want to talk, there will be a place to be able to do that. But there's also another part of that we want you to be a part of. We have some things called member guest activities. These are things where, because we are isolated, because the church is seen as the castle that's behind the moat that people can't get to, the question we have is, how do we bridge that gap? How do we get people? Because people don't really want to come. They don't feel they're worthy. They don't feel like it's a good investment of their time. Yet at the same time, if we can go out and we can do some activities that help us to build relationships and show people through our lives the life of Christ and the love of Christ, and we build those relationships to the point where they're curious and wanting to be part of what we're doing as a church, then we're going to grow, and it will take time. These things. I mean, I'd love to just snap my fingers and have this place full, and I'm sure all of you will too. But at the same time, in reality, we are going to have to take these steps. And so that means that maybe there's some things that are happening. For example, maybe there's something happening at your trailer park that we can come to, or you can invite a friend to. We've got a list of things that will be being passed out here. Let me make sure I'm not too far ahead of myself here. We've got a list of things that we're going to hand out that's going to be kind of an action plan. This is when we walked away from that seminar, we had a big piece of paper with sticky notes all over it about things that we can look forward to doing. And so some of those things are going to be like, we're going to have a pet blessing, probably in January, where people can come, and we'll do this at the park like we did last year. People can come and bring their pets, do a pet blessing, and begin to make that connection that way. Other things are small groups. You'll get people together that play cards to come, and or bunco, different things that we can do just to build the relationships, so that as we build those relationships, we will be able to invite people here. One of the studies that they did, and I don't know where you fit in this, but one of the studies they did is the average Methodist person invites another person to church once every 38 years. And that's kind of a scary thing. So I want to get into this. Some of the things that we can do in this video.
What do you want?
Mrs. Edwards, I know I ask you this like every week, but would you like to ride to church with me? Oh, come on, Mrs. Edwards, you'll like my church. We have some hot music. It may not be what you're bumping at all, but it's hot. We get down. What do you say, Mrs. Edwards?
Oh, I suppose.
I've heard it said that 80% of first-time church visitors come because someone personally invited them. All people need to feel loved and wanted, and for some people, it just takes having someone offer to give them a ride to church. We have something great going on at this church. People's lives are being transformed by God's love. Your homework this week is to find at least one person who could use a little more of that love and invite them to come with you next week. Trust me, it's worth the extra effort.
Mrs. Edwards, you want to listen to some music on the way? Go ahead, your choice. Okay, here we are.
Hi, I'm Karen Yazzie. And I'm Barbara Linscott. When I met Barbara, it was when I first started working at night, and I started in the middle of the year and met Barbara, and she was in another classroom at the time. Well, after going to the boot camp and learning more about how to change the way we look at invitations, I think that was the biggest piece for me. So we talked about the member guest events, which was getting together with a small group of people. And so we hosted at my house, me and a couple other members of the Vitality Group, a cookie making activity. And then we wanted to donate those cookies and give those cookies away. And Barbara was one of the folks invited at that time to the house.
I was excited to go to the cookie event. I didn't know how many people would be there, and it was at Karen's house, so I was very comfortable going to Karen's and meeting people. I knew Natasha would be there, I knew Karen would be there. They said there may be some other, I think Melissa was there that day.
He said it was just a casual time to just talk, and nobody really cared.
We laughed and we had a good time, and it was. We hoped that the cookies came out okay. They tasted good when they were finished.
They did taste good.
Okay, they're good.
Well, after we had the cookie event, Barbara was able to come, but we wanted to do it again and continue to build those relationships. And so we actually had the idea of doing a spa day since we had so much fun with the cookies. So we actually had a massage therapist come in. We had some folks from the church there painting nails. A friend of mine came in to do makeup. And we invited a few more folks. Barbara was able to come back. And we just had an afternoon of hampering, I guess.
From the first event, I thought, this will be fun. I was looking forward to it. And then when I went, there was several more members of the church there, and they were all so welcoming to me, and I felt very comfortable from the very beginning. So I knew this was an area that I wanted to go, but I just needed to make sure that I felt comfortable for me and the boys. And I had no idea where the church was.
So before that event was over, we were cleaning up and had some things that we needed to bring back this way to the church. And so I said, Barbara, why don't you take a ride with me? We don't live that far. We talked about, if she were to come down, how she might go as far as directions, and but coming to somewhere you've never been before, and knowing where to park and not wanting to stand out to be the different person here, I said, let's just ride by the church, and could see where the church was at.
Right.
It was more of a specific invitation of, would you like to come this Sunday? Right. Or, when do you think you might be able to come with your family? Because you had it, by that point, if I remember correctly, had expressed, I'd like to get back into it, just not sure when's the right time.
Right, yeah. And when I started to feel more comfortable that I could come with the boys and make more of a commitment. And I do think that the spa event and meeting more of the members, that made my comfort level a lot higher. We first started coming Easter of 2013. It was the first Easter Sunday was when we came. And we started on a regular basis right about then. The boys have been welcomed, and it's been great to hear them say, are we going to our church? It's, my church. I go to Rock Grove, that's my church. Even my husband has said our church.
And I think through those member guest events and a little bit of time just to spend getting to know somebody a little bit better, and then having the confidence to invite her, that grew my faith. And that, helped me get closer because, God did tell us to go out and find others and to go out and tell others about God. And that's something I've always been nervous, scared, not confident in doing that. And so, as I say, the member guests made Barbara more comfortable. The member guests made me more comfortable in giving that invitation.
In our scripture this morning, the book of Acts, the disciples, they had been in front of the council and had been warned not to preach anymore in this name of Jesus. But they came back and they gathered around the people. And they told them what had happened, and they told them the story of being, in front of the Sanhedrin, the ruling council. And when they got through telling that, they continued saying, you know what? I'm going to preach Christ. And they started building relationships, and they continued to build relationships, and here we are 2,000 years later, still building relationships. And so we are called, in a sense, that is the direction we are called to go. And so we invite you to be along. We've got the action plans that will be passed out. There will be a couple of sticky notes on them. If you have some thoughts or an idea, you can write those ideas on a sticky note. And then when we go next door to the Thanksgiving meal, we're going to take the whiteboard over there, and you can stick them on the whiteboard, or there will also be pens there. If you have some ideas, some suggestions, maybe an event that you would like to start or do, then that board will be there so that we can start getting those ideas from you. And on these papers that they're passing out, there's some ideas already there. So these are the things that we want to do. These are the things that we believe, after being through this seminar, will take us and bring us into that 20% range, that area where the church is growing. And I believe when, as we build the excitement and we build the community here, that will continue to help us grow over the next few years. Let's pray. Gracious God, I thank you so many things, for the opportunity that we had to go to this seminar, but also even beyond that, the continued inspiration that you give us. And I thank you for those who patiently endured our presentation. And Lord, I ask that you light a fire, that whatever is kindling inside them, that little smolder of a flame that's going on, these ideas that they have, keep lighting that. Keep that fire stoked up, so that we can be and go into this world and share your love and your grace. Help us to continue and to become one of those 20% churches, not for our glory, Lord, but for yours. The world we see, the world around us, we know needs to know your love, your grace, and your mercy. So I pray, Lord, that you will lead and guide us. In the name of Christ, amen.